And you can see because it's dry, it hasn't disturbed the paint underneath. So I'm going to re-wet that. And then go into these same three colours again. Same colours you've done for the mountains. And then starting on this side, I'm just going to pull down the reflections. A bit stronger now. And this big one. And there. Make this one a bit stronger. And then a bit more raw sienna, just to do that little bit. You see how that bit's more raw sienna, so remember, it doesn't have to be exact. As long as it's there or thereabouts, you'll create a convincing impression. Remember, that's all we are creating. It's just an impression. We're not copying photographs or whatever it is you're working from. So that'll do for that. I'll just give that a quick dry again before I do anything else. And then now that's dry, I can just take off that bit of tissue that was stuck to the paper. Right, so next I'm going to put a tree line coming down here. So clean the brush. Again, just rub it on the lip, take off that excess, and then I'm going to go a bit of my sort of greens, and I always put them on this left hand side here. So you've got Payne's grey, lemon yellow and ultramarine, and then however you mix those you'll always end up with some kind of green. But I want it nice and dark, so lemon yellow, Payne's grey, bit of ultramarine, and then just using the corner of the brush right down to the water's edge. I'm going to clean that and try and get some variation in it. This time I'm just going to go raw sienna and then just come underneath it. Bit of lemon yellow. Just using the corner of the brush. Maybe a bit of, this time, going into burnt umber, bit of brown down there, lemon yellow, and then just using my fingernail, just scratch out a few trunks, tree trunks. Again, try not to overdo it. It's so easy to overdo. But it just helps create that impression of trees along that line by seeing the trunks. Don't go right up to the top. Remember, you're only looking at the bottom of the trunks. And then I'm going to do a quick sweep. I'm just going to go raw sienna, ultramarine, quick sweep around, burnt umber, ultramarine, Maybe even a touch of light red just to change the flavour in the foreground. Warm it right up. Ultramarine just to really darken it again. And then and while I've got those dark colours on the brush, I even suggest a few little reeds, just flicking up. It's very light flick. Just pop that in the water there. And I'm going to go to me sort of magic rock maker tool, which is the piece of card. Do a few over. Remember that's quite far away, so they're only going to be very small at this distance. And then you can see, always works most effective in the darker areas. So in this, nice and small. And then as it comes into the foreground, just a little bit bigger. And then I'll leave it at that. I think it's always best just do a couple and then stop and just sit back and have a look at it. Very easy to overdo it, and we can always just turn it round to the sharp. You see, that's a cornered. Just a little. It just seems to work better for me if you use the cornered piece. The round corner rather than the sharp edge, which is like this side. The sharp edge I tend to do for some bits of grass. Again, very easy to overdo. Just do a couple and then stop and have a look at it. So that's a very simple foreground putting. Next I want to put it needs a focal point, just a focal point, so I'm going to put a little boat on the horizon. Now the easiest way I know of doing boats is if we take the rigger, number 3 rigger, we haven't used it yet. As I mentioned before, I must do 99% of the painting with a hay. It's a cracking brush once you get used to it. So I've cleaned the rigger. I've took off most of the excess. I just want just a slightly damp brush. I'm going to look for remember focal points. You always use the rule of thirds. Try and put your focal point in one of the cross sections. So if you imagine lines, one line there and one line there, splitting it up into thirds, and the same going down. Put it on where the lines cross. So if you imagine the horizon line here is on the bottom third. If you imagine another third coming down here, so it's going to intersect about there. So if I put mine about there, so this is just a damp brush. And I'm just using a tissue, just a clean tissue, just to take the paint off. Where I've dampened it, it'll just come straight off. So just get that to a point, just to make that look like a yacht sail. You can see that now looks a bit like a yacht. And then if I just do the same underneath, just to create the reflection. It doesn't have to be as defined, as long as there's a sort of like that, just as long as it gives the idea of a reflection. I think we're just about done on that. All that's left to remains to be done now is probably the most important part. If you just go into a dark colour, anything will do. Just bring it to a fine point, and then in the bottom corner, if you just put your signature, and I'll call that one finished. So if we take a look at the finished painting, we can see how we've got dark sky at the top, and then by keeping the lower part of the sky light, you can see the profile of the mountains. Always look for contrast when you're painting, your lightest lights against your darkest darks, and your paintings will improve no end. You can see the effects of contrast here. See here, very good, dark against light. Here almost non-existent, very similar tones, resulting in very little counter change. And then here about halfway, so you can see the three different types of countage. Always try and exploit it where you can. Again, we can see the effects there. I always put the rocks in the darkest areas of the foreground, again to get this contrast. Another example here with our little yacht on the horizon, deliberately put in the darkest area. Well, I hope you were painting along. Give yourself a pat on the back. If you weren't happy with the results, remember, don't throw the paper away. Remember, you only turn it round. There's always two sides to every piece of paper. Have a go on the back. Try it again. So now you're all warmed up. Let's have a crack at another one.